DocTalk is brought to you by Multimin USA, manufacturers of Multimin 90, Sure Trace Mineral Supplementation by Timed Injection.
Hi there, folks. Welcome to DocTalk. Sure glad you joined us today for the show. We're going to talk about low-stress weaning of cattle. And whether you're a backgrounding operation or you're weaning bulls or weaning heifers or bringing in cattle off the ranch or somebody else's, all these concepts are the same. Hope you enjoy the show. Stay tuned.
We're cow-calf producers from northeast Colorado. We run about 300 commercial cows and calves and sell them at the sale barn in October.
Since we've been given multi-min, our reproduction rate is about 95%, which is pretty good for grassland, and we run bulls and we do not AI.
That means an extra 15 calves at sale time. We've been using the multi-min product for 3 years. We are really happy with it and recommend it to anybody in this business.
Closed caption brought to you by AgriLabs, the perfect pairing of performance and value. This segment is brought to you by Norbrook Laboratories, manufacturers of Normycin LA, Normectin Plus, 1%, and Poron, the practical choice for your herd.
Hi there, folks. Welcome to the show. I'm Dr. Dan Thompson here from the College of Veterinary Medicine at Kansas State University, and you've joined us this morning on DocTalk. And today we're going to talk about a subject that is near and dear to my heart, and that is low-stress weaning of cattle. And we have many different situations that we wean cattle. We wean them on the ranch of origin. We may wean them at a backgrounding operation. We may wean them at a feedlot. But that maternal separation, that going from consuming milk to consuming feed, is a very stressful point in time of a calf's life. And we're going to try to talk about things that make it least stressful as possible. Now, our big thing of calves and getting them started is to get them to eat or get them to consume the hay or dry feed that we provide. And some of the factors that we have to battle on a day-to-day basis are weather, cattle, different people, and Gary Gentry, who managed Lubbock Feed Yard, used to say the most three inconsistent things in the world are cattle, weather, and people. And those are things that we deal with on a day-to-day basis when we're starting cattle. There's not a lot that we can do about the weather. There is something we can do about the types of cattle that we procure or types of cattle that we raise. But the thing that we're going to focus on today are some of the habits and things that we can do with people when we're talking about weaning calves. And so when cattle first come into a facility or cattle come in off a truck or we bring them in out of the pastures, you know, the place that we're going to hold those cattle until we process them is called the receiving pen. And in the receiving pen, the first thing I like to greet those calves with are three things: good, fresh water supply, a good, fresh supply of long stem hay, and cattle comfort. And cattle comfort comes in a couple of different ways. But when we're talking about cattle comfort, I'm talking about mud, alleviation of mud, and I'm talking about alleviation of heat stress. And the two big things in receiving pens that I see is these calves walk in, and if these calves are long haul or have come in from long distance, the first thing cattle want to do is lay down. They're not looking for the water, they're not looking for the hay, they're looking for a place to lay down. And when we don't prepare that pen and get rid of the mud and give those calves a place to lay down, that's going to add stress. And that stress decreases the immune system, so these calves get off to a bad start. You don't have to clean the whole pen. Hook onto that box blade, make 1 lap or 2 laps around that pen. Give those animals a place to lay down until we process them the next day or process them later that same day. Feed, water need to be available, but more importantly, we need to make sure that we have that area for those calves to lay down. Mounds in these receiving pens are great. They not only provide wind, an ability for the calf to get up and catch a breeze during heat stress, but also gives them a dry place to lay down. Bedding is another important aspect that can be implemented if you don't have a way to remove that mud. After the break, we're going to talk more about receiving calves, and we're going to move on to talk about processing and how we handle those cattle. You're watching DocTalk, and I'm going to see you right after this break.
This segment was brought to you by Brute Cattle Equipment, makers of the Brute Stealth Hydraulic Chute. If the chute fits, swear by it. Visit our website for more information. And by Lalaman Animal Nutrition, dedicated to the development and production of natural and differential solutions for animal nutrition. Beef producers need a practical choice when antibiotic therapy is required. More than ever, they are reaching for non-prescription Noromycin 300LA from Norbrook, specially formulated to produce sustained antibiotic blood levels up to 4 days in cattle. Noromycin 300LA delivers economic, broad-spectrum disease management for pneumonia, shipping fever, pink eye, wound infections, and foot rot. See for yourself why Norbrook's Noromycin 300LA is the practical choice for your herd.
This hog is head over hoof for meal made from U.S. soybeans. Now, one hog isn't that impressive, but suppose we add another, and another, and another. Before long, you've got billions of hungry customers around the world all clamoring for the same thing. Our soybeans. Learn more about the billion-dollar appetite of animal agriculture at BeyondTheElevator.com. Brought to you by America's soybean farmers and their checkoff.
Dr. Dan here. Whether I'm driving up and down the roads covering the state of Kansas or I'm getting between Riley and Manhattan for my job, I'm driving a Ford truck. I'd like you to come out and visit my friends here at Dick Edwards Ford. They have a truck that'll suit your needs, whether you're looking for power with a Power Stroke diesel or if you're looking for fuel efficiency with the new EcoBoost engine, they got a truck that's just right for you. They're located 2 miles east of the Town Center Mall in Manhattan, Kansas, and they'll bend over backwards to help you. And I'll see you down the road.
Getting ready to work cattle for pre-breeding and calf vaccinations? There's no better time to use a safe, modified live virus vaccine to prevent BRD. Titanium provides the correct equation for BRD with its excellent safety profile and a strong response and long duration of immunity. Ask your veterinarian about modified live virus vaccines and the 8 convenient combinations of titanium for the perfect pairing of performance and value.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
This segment is brought to you by Rotomix, manufactured in the USA and designed for feeding performance in the feedlots, beef production, dairy, and cow-calf operations.
Hi there, folks. Welcome back to DocTalk. Dr. Dan Thompson, right here from the College of Veterinary Medicine at Kansas State University. I'm glad you joined us today. We're talking about weaning calves, and we're talking about taking these calves into a dry lot situation, or we're taking these cattle off of trucks at a backgrounding operation, or bringing them into a feed yard. But principles stay the same regardless of where the cattle originate from or where the cattle are going to. And so we're going to move from the calves are in the receiving pens to processing. And processing, people always ask me a lot of times, well, when do you recommend we process these cattle? My general rule of thumb for processing is for every hour they were on the truck, I give them an hour to rest. So if these cattle are long haul cattle that have been on the truck for 15, 20 hours, I'll wait until the next day to process those calves. If they're local cattle or cattle off my ranch, I can bring them in and process them right away. I don't even need to go to the receiving pen. But getting those cattle processed, specifically the ones that are high risk, and these are the cattle that have been unvaccinated, unweaned, as they're coming in, we do not want to wait very long before we get those calves processed. We definitely want to get it done within the first 24 to 48 hours. I understand that sometimes things don't work out, but within that time frame, let those cattle rest, let them get rehydrated, let them get a little feed in their belly, then we're going to process them, then we're going to move them to their home pen. Low stress cattle handling is imperative. You are the welcome wagon the first time that these calves are going to be handled in this facility and how they're going to interpret seeing a person or a human being. So understanding the work zone or the flight zone of these cattle is important. Handling them with care, handling them, making sure our facilities are up to date. Gates are working. We don't have places where cattle slip. We aren't using hot shots, and that we follow the BQA standards for moving animals is highly important. Once they get in the chute, we want to make sure that we're working with our local veterinarian to design a vaccination metaphylaxis protocol. So some of the things that I'd be thinking about on processing of new calves is vaccination with a modified live viral vaccine, a 5-way modified live. I'd be looking at a clostridial, 7-way clostridial. I would be looking at Mannheimia hemolytica vaccines. Those are probably the 3 biggest vaccines that we see recommended universally for these calves when we're weaning them or when we're bringing them in before we move them to the home pen. Metaphylaxis is the treatment, mass treatment of the calves with antibiotics, and on high-risk calves, I recommend that we use that. It's a great management tool for controlling bovine respiratory disease. We're going to also make sure that the animals are castrated and dehorned, and we're going to use the latest techniques to minimize pain, to promote health and well-being, and prevent stress in these calves. Processing is a quality event, not a quantity event. Running these through the cattle through the chute is not a timed event. When I've gone to the timed event finals, I have not seen processing in there with bulldogging or calf roping. So it's really, let's get the job done right, and let's get it done in a fashion that we don't stress the calves, we get proper immunity, and we move them on down the road. After the break, we're going to talk about starting those calves on feed and what we do at the bump. You're watching DocTalk. See you here in a minute.
This tip brought to you by Baytril 100 Enrofloxacin Injectable, now approved for use in controlling BRD in high-risk cattle. Baytril 100, right the first time, whether it's controlling BRD in high-risk cattle or treating BRD.
Hi folks, it's Dr. Dan from DocTalk. Thanks for joining me for today's On the Farm tip. We're going to talk about extra labeled drug usage. Labeled drug usage is when I pick up the bottle, there's a label on it. And when I look at the label, it's going to tell me how much to give, how often, and the route of administration. Route of administration might be sub-Q, IM, or intravenous. Now, anytime you change the route of administration, or if you change the dosage, or you change the time in which you give those drugs, that's called extra label drug usage. We can't do that without the written consent of a veterinarian. So we need to follow label directions. If we don't follow label directions, we can wind up with antibiotic residues in the meat. And so when we do an extra label drug usage, we need the veterinarian involved. Thanks for watching today's On the Farm tip. I'm Dr. Dan, and I'll see you down the road.
With BRD, every second counts. And when you get new high-risk cattle, you've got a choice to make. You can either take your chances and wait and see what happens, or you can take charge of BRD. Right from the start, treat bacteria up front with Baytril 100 Enrofloxacin Injectable, now approved by the FDA for BRD metaphylaxis and high-risk cattle. Ask your veterinarian about Baytril 100 and make it your go-to drug to control BRD in high-risk cattle or for treatment of BRD. Baytril 100, right the first time.
Got cattle? Rotomix manufactures a complete line of energy-efficient rotary and vertical feed mixers for feedlots, beef production, dairy, and cow-calf operations. Our mixers are available with the patented Generation 2 staggered rotor, the industry standard for feeding wet rations that include wet distiller's grain. Made in the USA, Rotomix mixers are designed for feeding performance that American cattlemen and dairy producers have come to expect. Rotomix, proud to offer a better mix in less time using less fuel.
My name's Tim Todd. Along with my wife Chris, we own and operate Green Mountain Angus Ranch out of Rygate, Montana. We give our cows a shot of multi-min pre-calving for the immune system of the unborn calf. She will transfer the minerals into the unborn calf through the blood system. When the calf is born, he has a high level of mineral in his liver, which will help with his immune system.
American innovation is being driven in places you might not expect by people like Brent Hayek, an Oklahoma family farmer, who recently set a world land speed record in a Ford Super Duty pickup truck powered by renewable B20 biodiesel. Advanced performance is here, now, putting America on the fast track to more jobs and energy independence. Biodiesel, America's advanced biofuel.
This segment is brought to you by Fink Beef Genetics. Our 23rd annual bull sale featuring 400 Angus and Charolais bulls is Wednesday, October 30th. Contact us at 785-293-5106 for more information and to be added to our mailing list.
Welcome back to DocTalk. We're going to talk about starting these newly weaned calves on feed. And one of the secrets is understanding calf behavior. If you have cattle that are used to being around people, used to being around commotion and trucks and horses and different things like that, then you know where you place these cattle probably isn't that important. But when we have cattle that are flighty or cattle that have been raised in range situations that aren't used to seeing people, or they're coming into a feed yard, placing them at a point where there's less traffic and less people movement during the day helps those cattle settle in and helps them find the bunk. And the one way that I greet these calves and to start to find the bunk is I'll put in long stem grass hay in the bunk, fluff it up where the calves can see it. Now, when we talk about rations, we'll talk about milled rations, totally mixed rations. I'm a firm believer in hay until the calves, providing hay for calves until they're consuming the hay that I'm offering, and they're starting to get full and get some fill back in these calves. So I'll provide hay for 2, 3, 4 days, as long as it takes for those calves to consume it. At the meantime, I'll be top dressing a milled ration or my one ration or the starter ration that I'm going to go with. And in our starter rations, we're recommending that we go at about 60 to 65% concentrate, which would be 40 to 35% roughage then. We consider silage to be 50% roughage, 50% concentrate. The other thing, as far as protein level within these rations, we want to start these calves out at about 14% crude protein on a dry matter basis, which with the distillers' products and some of the byproducts hasn't been an issue. Some people will say, I don't want to start calves on silage. And our experience with starting calves on silage is that the calves on silage tend to have lower intakes during the first 2 weeks, but will compensate for that and have similar intakes at 28 days relative to calves that were started on non-silage starter rations. So take it or leave it, silage is still a good feed to start these calves on. Now, the general rule of thumb is we want these calves to eat. And if what I teach in the veterinary school is if these calves aren't consuming 1.5% of their body weight of that starter ration by 7 to 10 days or a week and a half on feed, either the calves are sick or the calves are fixing to get sick. So 1.5% by 1.5 weeks on feed, or we're going to have problems. And when we are looking at this, remember the old adage is that sick cattle don't eat and cattle that don't eat get sick. And so we want to make sure that at that point in time we're taking special care and looking at these cattle to make sure the sickness. Now, when do I switch from the starter ration to the 2 ration or the next ration as we move them up on concentrate? I wait until we're done pulling the calves for morbidity, which might be 2, 3, 4 weeks. It might be 45 days, but it's vitally important to wait until that point in time. We're sitting here looking at these cattle and making sure that when they're consuming, okay, let's backtrack. Long stem hay in the bunk until they're consuming that hay, 3 to 4 days. Top dress with the milled ration, with our starter ration. We're going to bring our starter ration in, which is fortified with vitamins, minerals, crude protein, and it's going to be about 60 to 65% concentrate, and we'll switch off that diet when those calves are done, when we're done pulling them for morbidity for BRD. When we come back, we're going to talk about how to find those sick calves. You're watching DocTalk. Thanks for joining us.
This segment is brought to you by Purple Wave Auction, the easiest, most straightforward way to sell used equipment. Purple Wave, straight, simple, sold.
From Kansas State University, this is Agriculture Today. Modern-day agricultural commodity prices are linked tightly to the Federal Renewable Fuels Standard, which has become a focal point of vigorous agricultural policy debate. The keynote speaker at K-State's recent Risk and Profit Conference from the University of Illinois, Scott Irwin, believes that the EPA will look at options for changing it.
I personally think they're going to go with option number 2, which is a partial write-down of the cellulosic component of the advanced RFS. That will provide quite a bit of relief of our blend wall-related problems for 2014. If they continue on that path in 2015, that's when the biodiesel boom will really start up again.
This is K-State Research and Extension.
Cow-calf, stocker, and feedlot producers know that effective parasite control improves overall herd performance and profitability. Norbrook offers a comprehensive, economical line of pour-on and injectable parasiticides for every livestock operation. Consult with your local animal health supplier to set up a program that protects your investment and brings larger cattle checks this fall. See for yourself why the Noromectin line from Norbrook is the practical choice for your herd.
The Kansas State University College of Veterinary Medicine is a leader in food animal research and education. Our researchers are constantly expanding the knowledge of animal health and food safety. Through the Veterinary Health Center, and the Kansas State Veterinary Diagnostic Lab, we provide practical services for animal producers. Home of the Beef Cattle Institute, the college is committed to animal welfare training and research. The Kansas State University College of Veterinary Medicine, knowledge and service for the future of animal production.
Hi, I'm Kevin Ochsner, host of NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman and Colorado Rancher. Join me each week as the National Cattlemen's Beef Association brings you the latest updates in industry information and market news. Plus, each week we provide important educational information and features on cattlemen from across the country just like you. And we can't forget our favorite cowboy poet, Baxter Black. Join me for NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman, debuting Tuesday nights at 8:30 Eastern, right here on RFD TV.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
ValleyVet.com, ValleyVet.com, Valley Vet Supply.
This segment is brought to you by the Beef Quality Assurance Program and the Kansas Beef Council, improving animal care and beef safety for more than 20 years.
Folks, welcome back to DocTalk, talking about one of my favorite subjects, and that's weaning calves. And we've talked about receiving calves, we've talked about processing them. We can go on and on about that. We can make 2 or 3 shows on starting these calves on feed. Now we're going to talk about taking them to the home pen. We've got them in the home pen, we've got them on starter ration. How to identify sick cattle? Well, the method that we use is called the DART method. And DART stands for depression, anorexia, respiratory, and temperature. Depression is a calf that seems depressed, okay? Their head's down, their ears are droopy, they got a dull look in their eyes, and they're not doing well, okay? Those are the depressed calves. The anorexia means to be off feed. And as we said in the previous segment, sick cattle don't eat, and cattle that don't eat get sick. That's probably the first thing I look at is for a hollow flank on a calf, where I'm looking at that calf to see if that paralumbar fossa, that flank area, is sunken in, and if they're not eating. If those calves aren't eating, there's something wrong, that they're not able to compete or they're sick, and we want to bring them in for treatment. Respiration, if we have cattle that are laboring in breathing, or if these calves have an increased respiratory rate, or a combination of depression, anorexia, and respiratory rate, these are the 3 main criteria that I'm using out there in the pen when I'm looking at these cattle. There are others that people use as well, but these are the 3 main ones, and we'll pull those calves in and treat them. The normal rectal temperature of a beef calf is 101.5 to 103.5. And so anything that has a rectal temperature above 104, and again, this can be influenced somewhat on hot days with increasing the ambient temperature of the calf, but anything over 104 is considered to be running a fever, in my opinion. And so there are 2 fevers that if they're over 104, I'm going to consider these calves to have undifferentiated fever, generally bovine respiratory disease, and I'm going to treat them. So DART, depressed, off feed, respiration rates, and an elevated rectal temperature equals a calf sick with bovine respiratory disease, or those are the general terms. Now, here's a little trick that I can help you with finding these calves. Sometimes we don't pull sick cattle, we pull ugly cattle. And there's a difference between sick and ugly, and we want to make sure that the cattle we're pulling are sick, because we're going to use these antibiotics and they're not cheap. So what we want to do when we pull these cattle, one of the tricks that we started utilizing, if you're just getting started or you want a crutch to kind of help you, is that I look at these cattle when we offer feed to them or when we offer hay. Cattle that are sick generally won't come to the bunk. And if I keep these cattle just a little bit aggressive so that they're coming to the bunk, they're a little bit hungry, the ones that aren't sick are coming to the bunk, they're consuming hay in those first 3 to 4 days, they're consuming my starter ration, and these animals are the ones that aren't sick. And the sick animals hang out towards the back of the pen. I can go in, scoop them out, get them in for treatment. I sure hope you enjoyed today's show. I could go on and on talking about weaning calves because it's one of my passions and one of the reasons I went to vet school and did my nutrition degree to work with. Thanks for watching DocTalk. If you want to know more about what we do here at the College of Veterinary Medicine, you can find us on the web at www.vet.ksu.edu. Remember to always work with your local practitioner. Thanks a million for watching DocTalk today. I sure hope you enjoyed the show. I'm Dr. Dan Thompson, and I'll see you down the road. Closed caption brought to you by AgriLabs, the perfect pairing of performance and value.
DocTalk, produced in cooperation with Drovers Cattle Network and Bovine Veterinarian. For more information about this program or previous programs, go to DocTalkTV.com. DocTalk was brought to you by Multimin USA, manufacturers of Multimin 90, sure trace mineral supplementation by timed injection.
My name's Tim Todd. Along with my wife Chris, we own and operate Green Mountain Angus Ranch out of Rygate, Montana. We've been in the Angus business for about 30 years now. We sell about 350 bulls a year. We have a production sale in the fall, the third Friday in November. Then we have a private treaty sale in the spring. We've been using the Multimin product for about 7 years now. We started using it off the recommendation of our embryologist. He suggested that we give our recip cows a shot prior to putting embryos in. We had a real good conception rate that spring, and we've been using the product ever since. We did some research on the product. We talked to our veterinarian. We talked to some nutritionalists. This area of Montana can be a little deficient in copper. That's one of the three main minerals in Multimin, and so that we brought our copper levels in our cattle up to where they need to be. We've seen an increase of 5 to 6% in our conception rate in our AI program, which is huge. You start getting 30 to 40 more AI calves in a year. We put about $1,000 premium on our AI calves versus the calves out of our cleanup bulls, so we're showing a huge return by using the product in those regards. We give our cows a shot of Multimin pre-calving for the immune system of the unborn calf. She will transfer the minerals into the unborn calf through the blood system. When the calf is born, he has a high level of mineral in his liver, which will help with his immune system. We give our calves a shot of Multimin at weaning. We've seen results with the product. We've seen less sickness in our calves after we wean. We've seen less foot rot in our calves. They just seem to go on feed good. Their hair coat stay good. Those are the benefits that we've seen, the big benefits we've seen by using the product. We've started giving our bulls a shot of Multimin 30 days ahead of our semen evaluation tests. We've seen a decrease in the amount of bulls that don't pass their semen test, and we've seen better semen evaluation scores by giving the Multimin shots. In our particular operation, we lease a lot of pasture, so it's real important for these cattle to stay healthy. We don't get the opportunity to check them like we'd like to. It might be 3 or 4 days before we get through these cattle. The least sickness, the least foot rot we have, the better off we are. So with the use of Multimin, that's two of the big benefits we've seen. Healthier cattle, less maintenance.